and welcome to a very special episode of Kapow. I'm Sonia.
I'm Ray.
I'm Ardella.
And I'm Jill.
Now, as March is International Women in Comics Month, the girls have taken over King's Comics for an all-girls special. And as it wouldn't be especially special if it was, just me, I've invited three of my favourite Kapowians along to lend me a hand.
I'm here to talk about a few of my favourite female creators.
I'm helping Sonia with quick reviews of Princess Leia, Spider-Gwen, and Lady Killer.
And I'm here to check out a rather special statue.
Plus, all of us will be chatting about how women are represented in pop culture. So it's a really big show.
Someone's standing on my foot.
That's not your foot, that's my foot.
Actually, that's my foot, but I'm wearing her shoes.
Yeah, okay, that's it. This space is not meant for four people. I'm getting really claustrophobic and I have to go.
Oh, what?
Those are really nice shoes.
Oh, thank you.
In the crazy world of comics, there are some amazing women out there creating stories that we love to read. Ray and I have had a bit of a chat about this, and we've just decided to pinpoint a few of our personal favourites.
Not all of them.
No, not all. We don't have time for that. But we're going to share a few with you. Now, the first one that we kind of came up with is actually, well, she's my
It's her
favourite,
favourite.
which is Kelly Sue DeConnick. Now, if you don't know Kelly Sue, she's been writing Avengers Assemble, she's written Captain Marvel, she's also written Ghost for Dark Horse, and my personal favourite, which was actually how I started reading Kelly Sue DeConnick, Pretty Deadly. Pretty Deadly is it's an unusual title. It's kind of gory and accessible and weird and wonderful all at the same time, and anyone who's been watching Kapow knows that that's not everything that I really like.
So I first heard of Kelly when she kind of blew up on the internet, when she was invited to a
certain convention, yes.
in Ireland,
Yep.
and they billed her as her husband's wife.
Yes. She got billed as the wife of Matt Fraction. Why would you do that? Why? It created a meme that went on the internet and went insanely successful as far as memes are concerned in the comic book world, I think.
And it kind of spurred her to become a little bit outspoken as well about issues for women
That's right.
in comics.
Yeah.
She's not afraid to make other people uncomfortable so that her daughter doesn't have to, is what she's been quoted as saying.
That's brilliant. That's such a
Yeah.
great quote as well of hers to kind of pinpoint the kind of writer that she is,
Yeah.
which I think is awesome. She's a really strong voice, but we have to keep moving. So speaking of strong voices in the industry, number 2 is your favourite. Who is it, Ray?
Gail Simone. So you might know Gail Simone from Secret Six, Birds of Prey. She's the longest running female writer on Wonder Woman.
Excellent.
Also Batgirl.
Oh yes, with Batgirl as well. She was the first person to introduce a transgendered character into a mainstream comic, which is Alicia Yeoh, which is amazing.
Yep.
It's so cool. Now, one of my personal favourites of Gail Simone, as well as so many others, is her current run on Red Sonja.
Oh, really?
It's
I never
so
would have
good.
guessed.
Yeah, I know, right? It's so good. She's such a cheeky character that Gail's created out of Sonja,
Yeah.
and I think it's so wonderful. But did you know she also wrote some of the Treehouse of Horrors for The Simpsons? The Simpsons.
Now, I remember seeing the name in the little drippy goo, but connecting the dots didn't happen in my brain.
No, so
Thank
it
you,
just goes
Sonia.
to show how much Gail Simone has kind of infiltrated all of our titles and TV
Yeah.
and everything.
Absolutely.
It's pretty cool.
Now, one of the things that I really, really love about Gail Simone, well,
There's so many things.
It's almost everything I love about her. It's just her personality and
Yeah.
the way that she injects it into everything she writes.
Yeah.
All of her characters, the dialogue is realistic, but it's always got this underlying cheekiness.
Yeah.
She really grabs what is cool about them and brings that to the surface. And yeah, she writes page turners.
She really
Absolutely.
does.
But yeah, one of the things that brought Gail Simone to a lot of people's attention, I think, was her work with women in refrigerators. Now, she wrote an essay on this, and
Very
also,
long, amazing essay.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
incredible. If you haven't read it, look it up. And also worked with this website to compile a list of all the female superheroes and characters that were raped, murdered, shoved in refrigerators,
refrigerators.
as a plot device.
Yep.
You know, their entire purpose of being sometimes was just to be killed as a plot device for the male character in
That's
the
right.
story.
It's horrible. It's a horrible thing that has happened, but you know, it just takes one person to kind of go, hang on a second.
Yep.
This isn't right, let's go. And that person was Gail Simone, which is awesome.
Absolutely.
Such an awesome woman.
Also, if you're not following Gail Simone on Twitter, you are missing out.
Yeah.
She was actually voted the number one tweeters on IGN's list of top tweeters in comics, and
She's hilarious.
It is full of sarcastic hashtags about the comic world. So yeah, I highly recommend having a look at it.
Now, moving on from Gail Simone, we come to a little Aussie creator. Always good.
Also worked with
Gail
Gail
Simone,
on
indeed.
Birds of Prey.
We are, of course, talking about Nicola Scott.
Oi, oi, oi.
Now, Nicola is a fabulous artist who has worked on Teen Titans. She's also worked on Earth 2 with fellow Australian Tom Taylor.
Yes, as well as Birds of Prey.
Yep.
With Gail Simone.
Yes.
Secret Six. And she also drew the Blackest Night arc Wonder Woman, which is something I would love to cosplay when there are no children around.
Yeah, that's not a family-friendly one.
I feel like that would destroy Wonder Woman for a few people.
But I have to say, with cosplay and cons, Nicola is probably one of the most approachable people. She's always seems really happy to talk to everybody and really friendly. And we were really lucky. We got her at the beginning of Kapow. We actually managed to get an interview with Nicola, and she was so lovely and just so approachable, which
really
is really
is.
great to see.
She's really lovely and welcoming, and I think we've said lovely about
We've
15
said lovely
times,
times.
but she's
Nicola
just
is
so
lovely.
She will go out of her way to point out that she loves your cosplay, even if you haven't approached her. She's just one of those women that makes comics such a welcoming place for, women and girls on the outside that might think that it's a very male-centric kind of scary place. She's there as an example to say, no, women are here and they are welcome here and they do well here.
No, which is really nice to see. It's really awesome. But going on from Nicola's fabulous art to another artist, Fiona Staples. Now, Fiona Staples is probably best known for her work in Saga.
Yeah, for which she has been nominated for all of the awards and won only slightly less of them.
Yep.
There's Harveys, there's Eisners, there's Hugos.
Yep.
Yeah, she's often applauded for her detail. Her backgrounds are stunning, she's got this delicate line work, and her facial expressions look like facial expressions, which is kind of important.
It's kind of helpful.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the thing. You open any page in Saga and it's stunning. It's a piece of art. You hang it on your wall. I really love Fiona Staples' work. I think it's really evocative and very, it just helps build that world so much in Saga because it's such a weird, wonderful world.
Yeah, some of the worlds she gets handed, it's difficult to see how you would translate that from being given
Absolutely.
this description in this script to be able to put that on a page so that readers can be immersed into it. But she manages
she does
to do
it
it.
beautifully. But look, I mean, that's just a couple of writers and a couple of artists that we personally love. There are so many more out there. But it's not just the creators. There's also editors, there's producers, there's PRs, there's accountants, there's, the work experience kid bringing coffee. It's all important to help create the comic books that we really love. There's one that I would like to just kind of pull out, which is Karen Berger. She was the executive editor of DC's Vertigo. Because of her, we had Alan Moore come across on Swamp Thing. We had Neil Gaiman write Sandman. She edited Y the Last Man, 100 Bullets, Hellblazer, Preacher, so many others.
Anything that's good.
Yeah, but
Pretty
she doesn't
much.
get her name written on the front of the book. It's written in tiny, tiny writing on the inside. But she's just one of the many, many women who helped create this fantastic world. And I think they all deserve a round of applause. It's an amazing thing that they do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, that tiny, tiny writing on the inside.
Yes.
You've read that tiny, tiny writing on the inside.
I always read the tiny, tiny writing
And why is that, Sonia?
because I'm a nerd.
Because she's a nerd.
Yeah. Now, it hasn't always been the case, but there are a lot of great female characters out there in mainstream comics, not just as part of a team, but also in their own solo titles. Longtime Kapowian Ardella and I are going to take a look at some of the recent releases that have a lady in top billing.
There are some awesome female protagonists coming onto the scene at the moment, Sonia, and we have some incredible titles to review today. First up is a spin-off from Marvel's Spider-Verse event, Issue 1 of Spider-Gwen, written by Jason Latour with art by Robbie Rodriguez.
In an alternate universe, it was Gwen Stacy who got bitten by a radioactive spider and consequently took up the mantle of Spider-Woman. There are a lot of other differences in this dystopian universe though, including Frank Castle being a cop and Matt Murdock being the Kingpin.
Which is a lot to take in a very short amount of time, and that's where my issue with this comic really lies. It is an issue 1, but I found it incredibly hard to follow without having first read Edge of the Spider-Verse issue 2.
Yeah, I do agree with you there, but there is still a lot to love in this comic. Rodriguez's artwork is so cool, and Rico Renzi's colour palette really makes some of those panels pop. I'm going to give it a borrow.
Yeah, I really do think that if nothing else, it made me want to go back and read all of those Spider-Verse comics that I had missed. I also really enjoyed the way that the character of Gwen was written.
Totally.
So I'm going to give it a borrow too.
Awesome. So from new heroes to an old one, from a galaxy far, far away. Issue 1 of Princess Leia is written by Mark Waid, with pencils by Terry Dodson, inks by Rachel Dodson, and colours by Geordie Belair.
Following on directly from the final scene of Star Wars A New Hope, this title sees Leia struggling to find a new purpose in the wake of Alderaan's destruction. Hard enough without everyone around her finding a reason to criticise, patronise, and completely dismiss her.
But Leia isn't about to stand for that, and she soon finds a way to get herself into trouble on her own terms. There are the beginnings of a really interesting journey here in this first issue, and although I do have a few niggles about the consistency of the artwork, especially in some of the character faces, I'm going to give this one a borrow.
Yeah, I really wasn't sold on this one, and I really felt that a lot of the movie references came through as really forced. I didn't like that there was a lot of discussion in it as well, and not nearly enough actual pew-pew. So I'm going to have to give this one a berry.
Okay, well, moving on for our final review, we go from a hero to an anti-hero. Dark Horse's Lady Killer is written by Jamie S. Rich and Joelle Jones, who does double duty on the artwork. If you've ever imagined a comic which is a combination of Mad Men, Danger Girl, and 100 Bullets, then, well, you're going to have to think of something else because it's already been written.
Yeah, and it is, not to put too fine a point on it, extremely cool. Josie Schuler is your standard everyday early 60s housewife. Except that while her husband is at work, she operates as a merciless freelance assassin. As a lover of vintage fashion myself, the artwork's nods to the style of the era set me up with all the appropriate expectations and then gleefully undermined them.
Yeah, the sensory dissonance in the artwork is genius. Everything about Josie's home life, from her cherubic children to her endearingly placid husband, who, interestingly, looks a lot like the husband from 101 Dalmatians, is classic Disney. But then the whole thing gets doused liberally in violence and becomes utterly captivating.
Now, this title is already a few issues old, but I've only just discovered it. And just 5 pages into the first issue, I couldn't wait to find out more about Josie's motivations behind moving into this line of work.
Yep.
I couldn't wait to devour the rest of the series, and it's a definite buy from me.
Yeah, look, I couldn't agree more. The dialogue is snappy and darkly hilarious, and Jones has really outdone herself with the character models and the brutal action. I'm well and truly hooked on this. It's a buy from me as well.
So if you have any other recommendations for awesome female protagonists that you'd like us to review here on Kapow, leave a note in the comments or drop us a line on Facebook.
Now, as you may have noticed, this is not Ray. In keeping with my all-girls special, I've invited Jill along to have a look at a collectible with me. Thanks for coming in, Jill.
Thank you for having me. Now you promised me something special.
Yes, and I will not disappoint. Ta-da! Let me introduce to you Julie Newmar's Catwoman. Ms. Newmar was the first actress to portray Catwoman on TV in the fabulously camp 1966 Batman series, and personally, I think she's one of the best. But let's get to the statue. Presented by Tweederhead, this statue is a very limited edition. She stands at 12 inches and was sculpted by the brilliant Trevor Grove, who also sculpted the 1960s era Batman and Robin, also for Tweederhead. Now, there's also an Emerald edition. That particular piece can only be ordered through Tweederhead's site. It comes with a green cubic zirconia, a numbered base, and a certificate signed by Julie Newmar. But we have the beautiful Diamond edition.
And she is wonderful. The details in the costume are amazing. The subtle differences between her catsuit, boots, and gloves give a wonderful texture to the piece. Also, the detailing on her necklace and belt are a lovely touch. The jewel itself is a Swarovski crystal and certainly glitters enough to catch a cat burglar's eye.
The detail on her face and hair are a standout. The slightly upturned lips and demure eyes, to me, really shows the character of Newmar's Catwoman. Sultry, sexy, and teasing, but not over the top. No batting eyelashes or red lips here, and her hair has so much texture.
It's wonderfully sculpted, isn't it? There's just so much movement in the hair that you could imagine it being caught up in the wind. With her eyes, I would like to point out that the detail on the liner and the eyelashes is fantastic. Paintmaster David Fisher really did a wonderful job capturing that classic Newmar cat's eye.
Catwoman leans back on a golden cat statue with a glinted jewel in her rather sharp clawed hand. According to Tweederhead's Chad Colbank, the idea of the base comes from the golden cat statues that were in Catwoman's office.
I really love the base. It's simple and elegant and really gives a wonderful life to Catwoman. Catwoman. You can imagine her leaning against this ancient Egyptian artifact, having just stolen the jewel and waiting for Batman to appear. It doesn't overpower the scene, it gives it quite a stability to the piece.
Yeah, and here's a fun fact. Julie Newmar herself was involved in the creation of the piece. She was sent progress photos throughout and was shown the wax sculpt, to which she added her own notes. And I think the result speaks for itself. Anyone who's a fan of the 1966 Batman series or just of Catwoman would love to have this piece. It will make your wallet cry, but if you are a fan of the Princess of Plunder, you can't go past this sculpt. It's a buy from me.
I agree, there's nothing here not to like. Tweeterhead have done a fantastic job of bringing Newmar's Catwoman back to life, and it would take pride of place on any collector's shelf. It's a buy from me too.
Awesome. So are you glad you came along?
Absolutely, I love looking at a classic sculpt.
Perfect.
That's the wrong Catwoman.
I know.
You have been hanging out with Ray far too long.
Yeah. So we are doing an all-girls Kapow special because it's International Women in Comics Month, which is an awesome month to celebrate. Yes. So I have obviously invited my awesome women to have a bit of a chat. Now look, we're going to talk about how women are represented in comics. Yes, it is a huge topic. It is so broad and it is certainly not going to be resolved in the next 5 minutes of us having a bit of a chat. But it's an important topic that needs to be spoken about. It needs to be talked about, and definitely, you know, who better to talk about than these three girls? So, all right, ladies.
No pressure.
No pressure. Ladies, the big broad question first. How do you think women are represented in pop culture? So not just in comics, but in films, TV, anything to do with our wonderful geeky world.
Obviously, there is room for improvement. There's always room for improvement. But as a broad generalisation, women in pop culture compared to women in the regular mainstream sort of celebrity culture, I feel like we're far better represented. You see more female protagonists, you see more complex female characters, you see more women kicking ass. Can I say that?
You totally can.
Excellent.
Totally can.
Yeah, I do feel though a little bit that there's kind of a divide. You can either have your female protagonists who are very caring and sort of almost the damsel in distress, or you can have your protagonists who are the butt-kicking, take no names, you know,
Kickers.
yeah,
The kickers.
The kickers, exactly.
Yeah,
That's
their
a great
job is
term
to
for
kick.
them.
They're both
exactly.
really representative of everyday women, though. I think there is a softer side to a lot of females, but there's also the we want to get out there and kick butt too.
Yeah. I just wish there were more female characters who sort of tread the line between the two, who have the butt-kicking side and also the caring, kind family side.
Yeah, less generic, strong female characters and more
Yes.
complex,
Well-rounded.
real
Characters. And this is the thing that I find quite interesting because, I mean, it's not just girls, there are boys in comics as well. And our favourite characters like Batman, like Superman, like, you know, Hawkeye, gosh, even Deadpool to a certain degree. I know. They're all complex characters with a range of issues, problems, struggles that the women don't seem to have.
Yeah.
They seem to have a relatively easy or really hard life, and there is nothing in between.
Yeah, and I find that a lot of the females who are the butt-kicking type always have to have that backstory of having a really hard time of it. And I found that a lot with the reboot of Lara Croft. I really disliked that they gave her a really hard time because otherwise she couldn't have been an archaeologist. You know, she had to have that hard time to have a reason behind going into a, you know, generally male profession. And I would have rather had her go into it just because that's what she liked.
I feel like it's still a vast improvement on the absolutely no story whatsoever, but oh boy, look at that hourglass figure.
Well, hourglass or like triangles.
Try, yeah. It's like a hard angled hourglass.
But that does bring up another really interesting point. I mean, the artwork in comic books can sometimes border on the, well, you know, slightly pornographic, especially in some titles. And there's always a lot of kind of conversation and sometimes furor over female costumes. Just recently, J. Scott Campbell had some rather strong words to say about Wonder Woman's latest costume. Now, if you don't know who J. Scott Campbell is, he's probably most well known for Danger Girl, but also he does a fairy tale calendar, you were saying,
That's
Beck.
right. He does a fairy tale calendar which takes the female leads from fairy tales and sexualizes them.
Yeah. So he's very much a you know, he is a TNA guy, let's be honest here. And he's not a fan of Wonder Woman's costume. And he's gotten such a big backlash because he dared to say he didn't like it. Now, I can't help but think he's entitled to his opinion. We are a social media world, we tweet what our opinions now. Is it okay for people to come back to him and say that you don't have the right to say that?
Oh, no. I think everyone is actually, everyone's entitled to an opinion as long as it's, not hurtful or, bigotry or all those sorts of horrible things. I think the way that he's gone about it, though, it comes across as incredibly defensive.
Sure.
For obvious reasons. I think he's seen costumes move into a more practical, kind of realistic, some would even say, path, which is the opposite of what his art design generally is.
Sure.
So that's kind of what I've picked up in his
At the same
criticism.
time, though, he has recently done a cover for Spider-Gwen, which is a very practical costume, and I really feel like it's really his stylistic point of view that he's trying to put out there. I don't think he has any issues with women being dressed less provocatively in general. It's just his stylistic viewpoint that he's putting out.
They're definitely not shoulder pads, though.
No, they're pauldrons. They're not 80s. It's not a power
Really
suit.
pauldrons. They're a weapon.
They do stuff.
I love the new costume. Look, I look at it and I think that is something I could wear at a con and be warm. Awesome thigh-high boots that I could wear but not feel over-sexualized.
Yeah.
I'd feel comfortable wearing that when I'm talking to little girls being Wonder Woman without their parents looking at me going, oh gosh, is this who my daughter's meant to look up to?
I think it's a redesign that's actually looking at the history of the character and what she does, and taking that to the level of, well, this is what someone in the 21st century would wear while they're doing their job.
Yeah, definitely. I do think, though, that it's an interesting look at how men are perceived when they do take issue with something that a woman is wearing, whether that's it being under-sexualized or over-sexualized. I think that everyone, male or female, has a right to have their opinion, especially in something that is so subjective.
Yeah, well, and that's what we have to always remember. Ray, just bringing up with your cosplay and being in conventions, that's a good point, talking to little girls at conventions, being dressed as a comic book character. How, this is the next thing, this is the next step that we need to take in how to make those girls and their parents feel comfortable letting their girls go to conventions, dress up. How do we get them to realise that this is not a male-dominated world anymore? The demographic of comic book readers are actually predominantly women and teenage girls. We are so entrenched in this stereotype of the fat comic book guy from The Simpsons, or the awkward,
Big Bang
teenager,
Theory
or Big
guys.
Bang Theory.
But that's never been the case.
Never. And yet
know one
it's
guy
it's
like
got
that.
such a hold on this world that we are struggling to kind of break. What's the way forward, ladies? How do we get girls to go, you know what, I've watched Agent Carter, I think she's awesome, how do I get into that world? How do I start reading even, Captain America?
Yeah.
That's where you're going to go with Agent Carter. You're going to get into Captain America.
Yeah.
You watch the Avengers, you read Black Widow.
Yeah.
How do we get these girls to go, yeah, you know what, this is an awesome world, you need to be in it, and here's where you start.
We need the existing female comic readers to be more vocal about reading comics, particularly ones that are comfortable with being vocal about it and are comfortable with it and, are okay to get into interactions with, the gatekeepers that say that they shouldn't be there, because we vastly outnumber the gatekeepers and we can silence the gatekeepers over time. Yeah, I think being more open, being more vocal about what you're doing and making it more obvious that it is a place where there are a lot of
It
women.
all starts with sharing. Like,
Absolutely.
You know a woman in your life that likes reading, likes fantasy, that sort of different world, then share a comic book with them.
Definitely. And I think that realising that women who read comics don't just have to read female-centric comics. No. It's amazing to me how many people go, oh, you're a girl who reads comics, you must read something that has a female protagonist in it.
It's like you can only read Wonder Woman, or you can only read Catwoman, or
Exactly.
Names ending in woman and girl.
Exactly. Whereas I think it's more important to search for something that you already enjoy. So if you already enjoy movies that are about assassins, if you already enjoy movies that are about spies or movies about superheroes, then just go for that genre of comic book because there's a great chance that you're going to enjoy the comic book as well.
Yeah, I think comics are a lot more accessible these days as well.
Definitely.
You know, if you're a woman or a girl that might be a little bit intimidated about walking into a comic store, you know, it might be, I don't know what. They're amazing.
Intimidated.
But there is that kind of perception that it's a dark basement-y place where you're going to walk down and instantly be quizzed by the guy behind the counter on your nerd cred. If that's a bit intimidating, you know, download one of the many apps that you can read comics on. Become familiar with things. You know, try some series out and then come in and pick up a big, thick graphic novel.
There are so many web series that are like online blogs and Tumblr and things like that that have amazing comics and a lot of really feminist-led comics too.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Facebook is a great tool to kind of connect with people who are in the world, either cosplayers or writers, creators. There's a great one called Valkyries, which is run by women who work in comic book shops. Like, these places are not scary.
No.
Girls do work here, and we would love for you to come in and pick up a comic.
Yeah.
Look, that we can literally talk on and on and on. We've covered quite a broad range of topics, and there are still more topics to be spoken about, more costumes to pull apart and put back together again. The fact of the matter is, everyone, I think, would agree that be vocal with your fandom. Say you love it.
Do it.
Whether it's a movie, a comic book, a book, anything, be vocal and allow people into your world. Because it's wonderful to share.
And you make so many friends.
Yep.
Yeah.
The idea that it really is a totally guy-centric thing is nonsense. I didn't even know that comics were meant to be for boys until I was older. My nan got me into comics. That's awesome. I thought comics were for everyone, and guess what? They are.
I wouldn't know you guys if I didn't read comics.
I wouldn't know any of you guys if I didn't read comics.
See, this is what happens when you have an all-girl special. Guys, thank you so much for coming on and having a chat about these really important topics that need to continue to be spoken about.
Definitely.
Kapowians out there, you're all awesome, you're all lovely. Comment on the YouTube, comment on the Facebook, the Twitter. Get the word out there that comic books are not scary places for girls, but a warm, welcoming area that everyone can enjoy. Well, sadly, we have come to the end of our show. Thank you so much, guys, for coming on and giving me a hand with this all-girls special. Thanks for having
No
me.
worries, thank you.
I hope you guys have really enjoyed it as well. And if there are any female creators or comic book characters that you really love, let us know on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter.
Hey, out of interest, where are Elle and Ray?
They're around.
Yeah, let's go with a round.
Yeah, it's not like we tied them up and put them in the stock room.
So that's where my Wonder Woman lariat went.
Yeah, thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time. Bye!